So in today's video of how I do my computer flipping, we will be covering how I go about benchmarking my computers. But first, there will be a message from our sponsor. Hi, I'm Two Wheels Used Tech here with the Dustaway. Dustaway is the best product on the market for dusting, cleaning, and removing that pesky dust in your computer system. The Dustaway is no ordinary paintbrush. Built with technology passed down from the PC Master Race, this bad boy has been engineered to near perfection for removing dust from your system. Dust buildup in your systems can cause catastrophic failure, so make sure that you keep the dust out with a Dustaway. Normal human mouths just won't do, but with the Dustaway, that dust will not get in your way. Plus, the Dustaway is so powerful, it works underwater. The Dustaway is perfect for cleaning off motherboards, graphics cards, fans, and many, many more. Just imagine all the things you could clean with a Dustaway. And for the next 20 minutes, if you call right now, not only will you get the Dustaway Original, but you'll also get the Dustaway Mini for absolutely free. So why wait? Call now. If there's dust in your way, dust away. So guys, if there's dust in your way, dust away. Not actually sponsored, if you didn't get that that was a parody. But anyway, thought it'd be a little bit funny. But the actual topic for today, we are going to be benchmarking a computer, or showing the process of how I benchmark computers. There's a little bit of, I guess, interpretation or different ways of doing this. It also depends on what purpose your computer is going to serve when you're done with it, whether it be a work rig or a gaming PC or a e-machine, whatever you're ending up with, the benchmarks that matter might change a little bit. Obviously for gaming PCs, what we're most interested in is that glorious, glorious FPS. So we'll be going over that, showing the different games I test, how I test them, how I try to keep them consistent. We will be going over the actual benchmarking tools that I use as well. We will also be testing the thermals of the machine to make sure that they are within acceptable levels for anyone who will end up with the computer, and also make sure that it doesn't sound like a jet engine trying to take off whenever they launch a simple application. But before we get into benchmarking, I have a little bit of work in my way. Thanks to video editing magic, it will be just a few moments for you. I have to clean out and kind of reset up this computer that I just purchased. It's not exactly set up ideally, so we're going to be doing a little dusting away with this bad boy, making sure all the cables are managed and whatnot, and then we will get into the actual benchmarking. So enjoy this little dusting away. So through the power of movie magic, the computer is now all clean, beautiful, lit up and shiny and ready to be benchmarked. Well, it's already been benchmarked, but that's kind of the point. So when I benchmark, besides the games themselves, which we'll go over here soon, the things that I tend to do is overnight thermal testing, where I will run Furmark with its GPU burner and CPU burner at the same time overnight, and then come check on it in the morning to make sure that it hasn't exploded or crashed. It's kind of a stability test and a thermal test, both in one little benchmark. So besides the games that I benchmark, some of the actual benchmark tools that I use are 3D Mark Time Spy, Superposition, and Cinebench. And what that is a set scene or a set workload that the computer is then run through and then scored. So you can take different computers and run them through the exact same workload and then see the scores and how they compare. And it's a much easier way to comprehend and visualize what performance you're getting out of your computer. So besides the benchmarks that I use, I also test a bunch of different games and then benchmark them. Basically, it's just recording the frame rate while playing the game and making sure that you get some sort of good average that, you know, is playable or acceptable for that title. All the different games are different and unique in their own way. Some of them are on the list because they're very popular, some of them are because they're just good for benchmarking, and then some of them are because they're a little bit different than what your average gamer would play. A good example for the popular title is Fortnite. I don't play Fortnite, I don't particularly like benchmarking Fortnite, but it is a very popular game, and a lot of people will ask about it, so having it on the list of games that you've benchmarked and have FPS numbers for certainly helps if you're trying to sell the computer. The other type of game is the well-documented, commonly benchmarked game, like GTA 5 is the best example for this one. If you look at any video that is going through a GPU or CPU benchmark and how it performs in different games, there is a very good chance that GTA 5 will be on that list. Not only because GTA 5 is a rather old game, or a long-lasting old game is probably the better way of saying that, but it also is very conducive to benchmarking because it has a benchmarking tool built in that people commonly use. So having that to compare to other people's computers or GPU-CPU pairings is a good tool to have when you benchmark it and see for yourself where you land on that little scale. Third and finally, I think the esports titles kind of fall into a different category. Again, they kind of go to that popular side as well. But what the eSport titles will show you, if you run a fairly low intensity game like CSGO, you can see kind of the max frame rate that your computer is able to push. And some people really just want that 300 FPS CSGO for whatever reason. And if you can show that your computer is capable of doing that, then that is also another big selling point for whoever might buy it. So you might be asking how you go about doing these benchmarks. The tool that I use is MSI Afterburner, and then a tool that is built into that is Rivia Statistics Tuner. What that tool allows you to do is you can set hotkeys to start recording your frame rate over a period of time, and then you can take that average frame rate and then use that as, you know, what the average frame rate of the game was while you were playing it. Generally, I would recommend playing the game for 30 minutes or more, run it through different scenarios. Different scenes in the game will have different effects on your hardware. Some might be way more intensive and some might be rather light. So testing different parts of the game or testing different areas of the map might be conducive to getting a more accurate number so that when your buyer gets it and plays the game, they can also see that number represented in their playing. If you want a more detailed tutorial on how exactly to use MSI, that isn't exactly what this video is for. It's more my process for how I benchmark and why I choose the games that I do. But if you want a more detailed explanation, I can make that video, but it might be a little boring because it is just press this button, set this up, press this button, set that up. And if you're interested, I did actually benchmark this computer because it is going up for sale after this video. If you want to see the format, I'll go ahead and list off the numbers and the FPS that I got for each game that I use so that you can get a rough idea of what I end up with. One final note to add, because I mentioned this in another video, but not everyone's going to watch both videos, is one thing that I look for when I'm benchmarking the computer is making sure that the CPU and the GPU are relatively balanced and they're getting most of their utilization actually used. Again, you can use MSI Afterburner for this, looking up at that overlay and seeing how they're comparing and their temperatures and that kind of stuff. generally keeping an eye on that to make sure it's within an acceptable range is just good enough so you can benchmark and be good. Be good. Ugh. But if you do all that, make sure your temperatures are good, that your FP numbers are good and accurate. That is also very important. And that, you know, it's not super noisy. Then you have a pretty good computer that's benchmarked, and you have a new wealth of information to draw from when people ask you questions about it, or you can even put it in your description and just make it available to everybody to show this is the kind of performance that you can expect with this computer. So it's not a very in-depth topic. Of course, there is more to go into if you desired. Like if you're doing a workstation computer, you'd really want to focus on like zipping files or Blender workloads or different things like that. With gaming, you're focusing on gaming, believe it or not. And then for other computers that are just for like browsing the internet and whatnot, you don't even really have to benchmark those. Just kind of making sure they're snappy and responsive is usually enough. But for me, that's how I benchmark. That's the gist of it. Again, if you have questions, feel free to shoot them down below. I'm happy to answer them. I'll probably ramble a little bit and you'll have to excuse me for that. But if you learned something and you like the video, hit that like button. If you think I ramble too much and I'm incoherent at best, hit that dislike button. If you enjoy my little explanation videos on how I do flipping and the little inner workings of my operation, then hit that subscribe button. I'll try my best to keep you around. Without further ado, have a good day, guys.